Okay, so now we're going to talk about substitution. Once again, if you have not watched the video on Solve for Y, I suggest you do that. Solving for Y is going to make this section even easier, though I will show some examples of how to do harder problems using only substitution where you don't necessarily have to solve for Y, where you can use other numbers that you're going to solve for. Okay, so this one's going to be an easy one. We're going to start out already knowing x is a 3. Okay, and what we're going to do is substitute that x equals 3 into the y is equal to 2x plus 4. So substitute the value of x in the second equation into the second equation. Alright, so there's the second equation. We're substituting in x. That means where x was, I'm replacing it with that 3. Alright, so that means I'm going to have 2 times 3, which is a 6, 6 plus 4, which is a 10, so y equals 10. So, final step, we write it as an ordered pair. X goes first, then y. Our x was a 3, our y was a 10. That is the solution. Oh, also, once again, pause these right after I reveal the two equations you're going to use. Try and solve it yourself. Go through the process of doing it yourself. If you've done it differently or incorrectly, go ahead, pause me again, and try it again. Okay, but try and do as much of this correctly by yourself as you can. Alright, so here's a bit more of a medium one. Now you'll notice in both of these I've already solved for y, so that makes it kind of easy. The reason is we're going to substitute the y in the top with the y in the bottom. Alright, so there's the y, there's the equation we had in the bottom. I'm going to replace that y with what y was equal to in the beginning. So in the top equation, y equaled negative 3x plus minus 2, so that's what I replaced it with. Now we have to solve for x. I'll add a 3x to both sides. Okay, I can't get rid of that x by just subtracting a 3. I have to subtract 3, or I have to add 3x to get rid of that negative 3x. Okay, now I've got a 4 on the same side. It's a positive 4, so I'll subtract it. Okay, now I've got 6 times x. Opposite of times is division. I'll divide by 6. Ending with x equals negative 1. I can't stop there. I still need to know what y is. So, substitute in that value for x. Now I picked just any equation. You can pick either equation from the top to find y. Now 3 times negative 1 is a negative 3. Negative 3 plus 4 is a 1. My final step, write the answer as an ordered pair. X was a negative 1. Y was a 1. So I know that's several steps. I know you guys can do it. Once again, try and make sure you've already solved for y. If you've done that, it's going to be easier. Okay, so here's our two equations. Once again, I've already solved for y. So all I need to do is just like before. I'm going to take the y from the bottom, or the equation from the bottom, and substitute the y in that with what it was equal to in the beginning. Okay, I need to solve for x. I've got a negative 7/3 x, so I'm going to add 7/3 x to both sides. I get rid of that negative that way, and I'm left with 8/3 x minus a 3. Let's get rid of that 3 by just adding it. That's nice and easy. Now, in order to get rid of that fraction in front of x, I'm going to multiply by its reciprocal. Okay, and that's what I get. So I multiplied both sides by 3/8, which gives me x equals 3. Okay, now I need to take that x equals 3, pick one of my equations that I started with so that I can figure out y. So that's the equation I'm picking. I'm going to replace the x with a 3. 1/3 times 3 is a 1. 1 minus 3 is a negative 2. Write it as an ordered pair. So my x was a 3, y was a negative 2. Okay, this one's going to be a bit harder. This is going to be if I don't solve for y. How does substitution work if I haven't solved for y? Okay, so first of all, I have to solve for something. You just have to do it. If you're going to do substitution, you have to solve for a variable, or you have to have an equation that already has a variable solved for it. This case I don't, so I'm going to go ahead and pick y to solve for, just because I like solving for y. So now I've got y is equal to negative x plus a 1. Now I've got this equation from from the top equation we looked at. So I'm going to substitute the y that I have here, this negative x plus 1, in for the y in the second equation. Okay, so you guys can see how this looks like the second equation. We got 5x plus, rather than 2y, I've got 2 times what y was equal to. Alright, so now we'll just solve for x. Do your distributive property, so multiplying everything inside the parentheses by 2. Now combine like terms. 5x minus 2x is a 3x. I want to get x alone, so minus a 2, minus a 2. 3x is equal to 6. Divide everything by a 3 to arrive at x equals 2. Once again, I can't end there. I've got to put it back into one of the original equations so I can find y. That first one was so easy looking that I'll do that substitution. Replaced my x with a 2. I can subtract it on both sides, and y is equal to a negative 1. Write it as an ordered pair, and it is 2 and negative 1. Okay, this one is the same way. It's a bit harder. We need to solve for a variable, then substitute, then solve, then substitute, then solve, and just continue that process. Alright, so I've picked my top equation that I'm going to solve for a variable. Once again, I'm going to solve for a y. I'm going to add a 3x to both sides, and I'm done. I've now solved for y. Alright, because y is equal to 3x minus 1, I can replace a y with 3x minus 1. I'm going to do that in the second equation. Okay, so you guys can see how that looks like the second equation that I did. And I know I'm talking fast. Feel free to pause if necessary. Alright, so now we'll solve that for x. Alright, 2x plus 3x is 5x's. I need to get rid of that minus 1, so adding 1 sounds like a great idea. Now I've got 5x equals 5. I can divide both sides by 5, and I get x equals 1. Can't stop there. We got to find y, so I'm going to substitute x with 2 to figure out what y is. Alright, so 2 times 1 was just 2. To get rid of that positive 2, subtract 2 on both sides, and y equals 2. Write it as an ordered pair. So this is the end of the substitution segment.